changing the industry. What does that mean for us? It means perspective. You have to move in the direction that society is moving. We didn't want other people to feel like we had felt. We started getting all these new clients, and the shop was absolutely packed. It was absolutely busy. But guess what? I was broke. I was broke as a joke, dude. We didn't want them to feel alone in this. There are people all in this industry going through what you're going through right now. We need to be training our shops now how to build wealth, be part of what's changing our industry. It's time for a new perspective.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us here for an episode of the Lift Your Shop podcast. Today, I'll probably put in my place a little bit in terms of a veteran in terms of hosting podcasts, and Lucas Underwood, owner of L&N Performance Auto Repair, and also the host of the Changing the Industry podcast. So, yes. Lucas, thank you for being with me today.
Absolutely, dude. Thank you for having me. It's a blast.
Yeah, I'm super excited. This is the first time we've met and we're talking, but we have. I want to dig in a little bit more on just changing the industry, what that kind of means to you, and then digging into then how we go about really doing it. So Lucas, if you can explain to me, I guess let's start a little bit of your background, maybe for some people that maybe haven't heard of you. I know a lot of people have heard of you, but maybe for the few people that haven't, like kind of how you got started in this industry and then going into.
So when I was young, right, I grew up in a family business, and what we did was customer service, right? At the end of the day, it was a tourist attraction, and I learned from my parents what customer service really was to them. And so growing up in that, I also had plenty of opportunity to work with my hands, right? And I always gravitated to things like lawnmowers and anything that was a machine, anything that could be taken apart and put back together. I got really good at taking them apart. I wasn't necessarily that good at putting them back together. My dad was always like, listen, if you don't put this back together, we're not going to have anything to drive. So we're going to need to do that. And so I grew up working with my dad, my uncles, and my brothers, just tinkering, right? And I grew up and had this passion for it. And so my dad had a business which built houses, and I worked in that for a little bit, and it just wasn't for me. I worked in IT for a little bit. It just wasn't for me. And I had a really fast diesel pickup at the time.
Very nice.
And I said, look, I'm going to start selling some of these parts. And there's a whole long story behind how that happened. But I started selling diesel performance parts. Slowly but surely, I realized that a lot of the people who came in and bought these parts didn't have anybody who could install them and didn't have anybody who could fix the truck. So we started working on trucks. And then little by little, I recognized that a lot of people didn't truly know how to do the testing on an automobile or a diesel truck. I didn't either. And so about that time, I find Scanner Danner, right? And I start doing some research and learning how to work on a car and how to do the testing that need to be done. And as I grow, we started getting all these new clients, and the shop was absolutely packed. It was absolutely busy. But guess what? I was broke. I was broke as a joke, dude. It was terrible. It was miserable. I was doing everything. I was cleaning the toilets. I was fixing the cars. I was writing the service. I was doing everything in the shop that needed to be done. And I had helpers helping me with every other part.
Yep.
And so a few years back, I said to my wife, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. The stress is too high. I'm not interested in this. And I've always been the guy kind of ADHD bouncing from like thing to thing to thing. And I'd get bored with it, move on and do something else.
Yep.
And she said, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I think I want to go and learn to be the best technician that I can be. And so I'll go get a job. And I think I can earn more as a technician than as a shop owner. And she said, well, that's really funny you said that. Look what came in the mail today. And she hands me this postcard, and it's from ASTE. And ASTE is in Cary, North Carolina. It's a trade show, and it had training. And so she hands me this card, and I load up and say, look, I'm going to go to this. So I sign up for all the classes, and I'm signing up for all these technical classes. Never been to anything like this in my entire life. The extent of my automotive training at that point was that I had been watching Scanner Danner on YouTube.
Yep.
And so I walk into this place, and I walk through the door, and there's this man standing at the door, and his name was Bob Pulverini. I later figured out he was the executive director of the association that holds ASTE, or at the time it was IGONC.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, you're Lucas Underwood. And I said, I am. Yeah, you're right. And he said, I've got a question for you, son. I said, what's that? He said, I see that you're a shop owner, but you're taking all technical classes. And I said, yeah, that'd be accurate. And he said, would you humor me? And I said, okay. He said, would you take a management class? And I said, well, sir, I'm not really interested in running a shop anymore. This just isn't for me. I can't make any money. This is stressful. And he said, just humor me and take 2 management classes in the time here. And I said, okay, I'll do that. So I take off and I go to the first one was by a man named Malin Newton. And now, like I said, I grew up in customer service. Mm-hmm. And the whole purpose of the family business is if somebody came in, your whole goal was to make sure that they left happy. Right. And I'm sitting in this class with Malin Newton, and Malin says, you know, folks, one of the biggest problems I see with customer service is that you all think it's about how you feel about the client or the customer. But I hate to tell you, it's how the customer feels about you. And I'm like, oh, man, like, I am wrong about this. And so that goes on. And I listen to his class, and he's talking about how it is that we make people feel. And the experience we provide for them is more so even than fixing the car, the important factor. And so the next class was by a man named Rick White, who went on to be my business coach for a few years. I went into Rick's class and he said, I know you're stressed out. I know you don't feel like you have time to be here. I know you don't feel like you have the money to be here. I know you feel like everything is falling apart. And he said, I talked to hundreds and hundreds of shop owners every single day. And I promise you, you're not alone. This is a common theme. I thought, wow, he nailed that. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
And he said, I promise if you'll sit down and listen to me for the next hour, I can promise you that I can give you some tips and tricks that make this business run like it's supposed to. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. And that one statement's always stood out to me because that's exactly what I was trying to do. I was trying to reimagine how an auto repair business should run. And over time, I've figured out there's a pretty set and solid way that the auto repair business can run and be profitable. Mm-hmm. I don't need to reinvent it. It just works. And so I left that event and I joined a group on Facebook called ASOG. And I'm just like typing in auto repair shop, man, I'm hungry for knowledge. I'm passionate now. I'm like fired up about this. I joined this group called the Auto Shop Owners Group, or ASOG. And I get in there and we start, I'm asking questions. And at first there were some people very critical of the questions I was asking. My God, are you stupid? Like how crazy would that be? I can't believe that you don't know that. And this guy reached out and he said, hey, don't listen to them. I've been in your shoes before. I'll help you the best I can. And so for those that don't know the story, that person was David Roman. And now we have a podcast together. And so over the last 3 years, the podcast has grown to where it's in the top 2% of podcasts worldwide. It ranks in the top of the management category pretty frequently. And so as we started that, we kind of said, the pandemic had hit. We had not been going to training events. And we had both discussed the fact that we didn't want other people to feel like we had felt, right? We didn't want them to feel alone in this, because there's tons of people going through this every single day. And so here we are 3 years later, and we're still talking about the struggles and the challenges, and we're talking about what we screw up every single day, and we're talking to other people about their experiences in the auto repair business. And, you say, well, what does changing the industry mean for you? It means that we create a better environment where technicians, service advisors, shop owners, and those within our profession are aware that they are not alone. And they're aware that they can voice their opinions and they can share their experiences. And through those collective experiences, we can hear what somebody down the street says and says, man, I don't want to be the guy who treats my technician that way. I don't want to be the guy who treats my owner that way or does that, because I realize how this looks from the outside. Right. And so for changing the industry, what does that mean for us? It means perspective.
I love that. I love the transparency and the relatableness. I don't even know if that's the right word, but in terms of because I listen to your guys' podcast, and yes, me being a marketer in this industry, like why are you bothering us? Well, I want to learn about this industry as much as I can, because as a marketer, we can help change that perspective as well.
Absolutely.
And so that's where we need to understand these pains and struggles that owners are feeling, because then that correlates to how your customer is going to feel as well.
100%.
So I love what you guys are accomplishing, and because I say accomplish because you guys are obviously making an impact. You can see it in comment boards and things, and the way people discuss things now, and
Right.
not I'm gonna kill you kind of way. And they go, what
Right.
kind of comment are you putting? It's an open, very good discussion. Yes, some topics are harder than others, but I think
Well,
it's a
I'm
very
honored by the kind words. And, just this morning, I was talking to a good friend of mine, Jeff Compton,
mm-hmm.
and we're talking about the episode from this week. And he said, I'm a little offended by the episode. And I said, why? And he said, well, one of the guests said that instead of practicing, that technicians are going home to drink beer. And I said, well, I said, I think I would engage the question. I would engage that frustration. I would engage the offended nature of the comment and ask him what he meant. And he said, well, what do you mean? I said, listen, this man has experiences that you don't have. He's going through something you don't go through. He is dealing with people that you don't deal with. And all too often, we build our life around our personal experiences, if that makes sense. Yep. Right. And so we build a little box around ourselves and we're like, oh, this is how it is. This is how it happens. And this is why we do what we do. Right. And so when we open and broaden those around us and we're listening to other stories, and instead of saying this is the way it is, we ask, how is it? Right. Seek first to understand. When we do that, what we find is that other people have different perspectives and they've had different experiences that build those perspectives. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, we're not on an island anymore. Does that make sense? In other words, we've stepped back and we're seeing things in a whole different light. And so in Jeff's case, we talk about the technician, and he said, well, I'm not going home and drinking beer. I'm going home and practicing and studying, trying to become the best technician I can be. I said, right, but you're not everybody else. You're not the person this guy was talking about. He had an experience where someone did this. He said, I never thought about the fact that some people may be doing that. And it's like an obvious duh moment when you realize everybody's not sharing your experience, Yep.
And I think that's what's great about creating a platform for really anyone to be able to share that experience, because no one is the same. But like, if you find the right person that then resonates with that person that's just listening, it's like that. It like just clicks for them, and it changes how they view then the industry and how they treat their business. I think that's the whole purpose of why
absolutely
we're doing what we're doing.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
So I'd love now, like you mentioned the word perspective, and I think a big perspective change that a lot of people are needing to make are kind of their viewership of not only like, yes, the younger generation of customers coming in, but now the younger generation of technicians that they're needed to bring into their shop. Yeah. So I want to dig in a little bit more on the shop side of things and building and finding those. I mean, I hear it constantly in terms of like the discussions that I have with people, and they're like, oh, well, we're plenty busy, but we don't have the people to support it. Or they're like, well, I wish I had the right technician, and then I could field these extra calls and things like that. And so for you, in your experience, like, what are you seeing as kind of first the best recruiting tactics to find these people? And then I want to dig more of the younger ones and attracting these younger people to help kind of.
So the best recruiting tactic is to do what's best for other people first, right? Like if you want to talk about the best recruiting tactic, there it is. And how you act, what you do, what you say, the image of the business, the same thing that makes you attractive to a client is going to make you attractive to a potential hire. And the reality is that we can't continue to do things the way we've done them for the past 30 years and expect it to work. We're in a different labor market today than we've ever been in before. I was talking to my dad last night, really good friend of ours. His name's Alan, and he does landscaping. And so Alan goes out and he works for himself, and most of what he collects is cash, right? Yeah. And so he's out here working and he's getting paid more than he's probably ever been paid before. And he's doing a job, and he's providing a great service to hundreds of people in the community. He's making really good money doing it. And so that is what we're competing with, right? We're competing with this entrepreneurial mindset of the next generation, right? Because they want to be their own person. They want to make their own decisions. My dad's generation, they really live to work, right? And my dad's in his 70s, and he still gets up and goes every single day, right? Nonstop, just as hard as you can go. And I look at that and I think that is different than the generation we have today. I even asked him one time, I said, Dad, what is up with this? And he said, son, he said, I'll never forget. He said, a young man that works for us came to me a while back and he said, Mr. Underwood, I really would prefer if maybe I didn't have to work this many hours. And Dad said, well, what's your goal? What are you trying to accomplish? And he said, well, he said, if I could just play video games 4 to 6 hours a day, and I could buy these video games, and my mom's willing to pay this much of my rent, and if I go on this assistance program and I do this and this and this, I believe that I could play video games 6 hours a day. And my dad was going to have a stroke right there. I can't believe this, right? It's a completely different generation than it was, right? And so we're still using those tactics, Kelsey, that we were using before that attracted the hardworking, the 40, 50-year-old that is doing this because he lives to work. And we're trying to use those tactics to encourage him. We're trying to dangle the carrot that motivated him in front of someone who has a completely different belief system, has been taught completely differently than the previous generations have ever been taught, and we expect the same results. It's not going to work.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Where, that tactic and their mental, mental drive for the younger generation is more. They believe it's more work smarter, not work harder. But I guess their definition of smarter is what then becomes the clash. Where it's like to a lot of the older generation, it means work less, and that means not working hard at all. So then work smarter is not a thing. So that I think that's where finding that common ground is so tricky in terms of okay, well, how do we then provide to what appeals to the younger generation? And so I guess what would then be your answer of okay, so you as maybe an older business owner, and they're like, I have a young technician that has now stepped to the door, and he started out okay, and then now I'm realizing the amount of hours that he's able to pull is just not cutting it for what I expect. What then is the next step?
There's so much to unpack here. Right? There's a lot to talk about here. I think for starters, the number one issue that we see is we've not set proper expectations from the word go. And so we didn't say that, hey, your minimum level of acceptable performance is 8 hours a day. And we've not held them accountable to that. I've got situations where I become friends with my staff, and I love and care about my staff very much. They are part of my family. And I mean that when I say it. I'm not, we say that in the group sometimes, and people are like, I would never work for somebody that says we're like family. Nah, man, I don't think you understand. I just got back from the beach with one group of my staff, and I had been the week before that with another group of my staff to make sure that they have a chance to rest and relax and have opportunities to do fun stuff. And so I think we start by not setting expectations, and then we continue that by not reinforcing expectations. We put them in the bay and we say, go fix cars, right? And so the generation that is currently retiring from the automotive field, when you did that, they went out into that bay and they fixed every car they could possibly fix. It had nothing to do with how many hours were on that sheet. I'm going to give it an honest, hard day's work. That's what the American man did when he went out into that bay to fix that car. American man, American woman. And the newest generation, they look at it and they say, okay, that job calls for 8 hours, and it is currently 8 a.m. If I'm done by 5 p.m., there's my 8 hours. And it's not a push. It's not a hustle to get the job done as quickly in most cases. It's about the efficiency of, here's the time I was given. I'm going to use the time I was allotted, right? It's a different mindset. And so we have to understand that mindset. We have to understand their perspective of time, right? Because it's different than it's ever been before. And then, from that point on, right, if we're communicating with them clearly, here's the expectation. You are meeting or you're not meeting the expectation. And here is what I understand about how you see things. Here's what I understand about your perspective of what you're doing every single day. And here's my perspective. In other words, we're communicating. Because a lot of times as shop owners, we're too busy. We're in here running the front. We're answering the telephone. We're dealing with this technician. We're going over here. We're dealing with that technician. We're dealing with this technician. And we fail to communicate with the team. We're not doing our jobs. And so our job as shop owner is not to be back there working on a car with our head under the hood, right? Because you can't drive the ship when you're in the engine room. It's not to be out on the front counter as a service advisor. Our job is to run the business. I'm sure you know who the E-Myth, right?
Yep.
Gerber, Michael Gerber.
Yep.
I talk about it all the time. Like, hey, you know, the bakery story. And this lady goes in and she's super upset and she's got tears streaming down her face. And she says, you know, I bought this bakery and for God's sakes, all I want to do is bake cupcakes. And he's like, if you want to bake cupcakes, why did you buy a bakery? Go get a job baking cupcakes. But the job that the bakery does is not baking cupcakes. It's managing and running a bakery. And so it is time for us as owners, especially those who are finding themselves, you know, if you're looking down at your base and you're like, I can't find any help. And the help that I do have isn't so great. Man, it is time for some reflection and say, okay, I can't live in the world that I was living in before because the world that we're in now is different. Right. And so it comes down to managing and running the business. It comes down to being a business owner. It's not that there is not a shortage of talent in the pool right now. There's a lot of folks who aren't applying. There's a lot of folks who aren't interested in a job right now. I got 110 applications over the last 3 days. And it's not because of the podcast, right? Like we had fairly low application numbers and then they spiked up just all of a sudden. You have got to still yet be prepared to run the business. You've got to make sure that you're setting it up to where they can be successful and you're communicating with them and they understand what success is.
Absolutely. I mean, communication is kind of a lost art almost, especially like, I mean, it has to go both ways, obviously. Like it can't be a one-way communication, but I think not to pigeonhole the older generation, but it's just more of a go do the work and what's so hard? Like it's like you should just be going to just do what in my mind I expect you to do, but I mean, at this day and age, I mean, for me, when I talk with my wife, I need her to lay it out for me. I'm like, hey, I pretend I'm done. Right? I mean, even though you don't need to pretend sometimes, it's just
of course,
it just flies over my head. Just explain it to me very simply, and I'll get it done. But it just needs to be simple. And for a good amount of the younger generation, because there's just so many different mediums, their mind is just racing, and so it just kind of just needs to be simplified. Like, hey, these are the steps. Like as simple as they sound, like this is exactly what we need you to follow. And then you kind of,
you know, here's the thing: is that so many business owners have said, I won't do that, right? I'm not catering to them. I'm not going to change the way I live my life to meet their needs. Well, I hate to tell you, as a business owner, that is your damn job, right? Like that's what you do. It doesn't matter what you want. It matters if you want your business to be there in 20 years, if you want to grow your business, if you want it to be scalable, you can't just sit in a box and say, this is the way I do things and this is the way I want it to be. It's not realistic. You're not going to be in business in 20 years. You've got to roll with the punches. You got to go with the flow. And you have to develop and grow and fix things that need to be fixed. And you have to move in the direction that society is moving. There's a great video. And I talk about it all the time. I talked about it in a recent video that we did, or a recent podcast. It's called Changing Education Paradigms. And it was by a gentleman, Sir Ken Robinson. If you search his name, there's a RSA Animate, and he does a lot of videos. I don't agree with everything he says or does, but and he passed away, I think, a year ago from COVID. But so he shares some really interesting concepts about education. And one of the things that he brings up in this video is he said, we're trying to educate children in the most enlightening time ever, right? We're talking about tablets and we're talking about Facebook and TikTok and every type of social media. We're talking about constant engagement, right? 24/7 engagement. If you want engagement with other human beings, you can have engagement all the time, right? And the problem is sometimes that engagement that they're getting is not real engagement, right? And I think about this. I've got two young kids, and there have been scenarios where my son, who just turned 5, will watch something on YouTube, and my wife will come in and say, "Hey, he's picked up this nasty habit. He's doing this thing." And we'll start really investigating, trying to look back and see where that habit came from. And we find out that it was on a video he watched. It was something he was saying or doing that he picked up online. Now, look, if you think a child's program, a cartoon designed for 5-year olds is a viable source of information, right? But we're human beings, right? We're sponges. We soak that stuff in. And so often we get that one perspective. And you know, Chris Enright, he does a bunch of TikTok videos. He's been talking about positivity coming into the automotive industry. And he said, look, I'm so frustrated because I see all of this negative content. This stuff becomes an echo chamber, right? It becomes an echo chamber. And so technicians think that they're being treated so terribly, and shop owners think that all technicians suck. And if we're not careful and we don't have open, clear dialogue and communication, we can get stuck in an echo chamber that's absolutely not real life, right? It's not the world that we live in. It is, I don't want to say it's a figment of our imagination, but it's a box full of stories we told ourselves, and most of them are not true. So I think it's important that we have clear dialogue and we really expand our minds a little bit and think outside the box, and we encourage those in our circles to do the same. And so your technicians, your service advisors, those people are in your circles, and you need to encourage those people, those technicians who are coming in, these young folks. You need to encourage them and guide them into good, positive groups. You need to get them into training. You need to take them to events like ASTE, and you need to let them flourish in that and see what the big part of the industry is doing so they don't get stuck in an echo chamber.
Absolutely. And I mean, social media does a great job of almost like just shoving you into that echo chamber as well, where you think,
yeah,
well, everyone agrees with me. This is all I see on my feed. Yeah, everyone agrees. And then like all of a sudden one person pops up and they're like, wait a second, they don't agree with me. Who is this person? What are they even doing here? And so I think that's where we need to make sure that we just receive all points of communication of what they're saying. Maybe we completely disagree, but regardless, that's what they're saying, that's what their belief is. And
back to seek first to understand, right? And you know, when I started doing research on the YouTube algorithm, right, that was one of the coolest things I ever learned about how YouTube determines where it's going to put out its data and where it's going to find the next watcher of your video. And so it starts with your circle of subscribers, right? And then it tries somebody in that circle. So if a certain group of people that have been put into this little circle, and within those 150, 200 people that watch the video initially, if somebody in there and there's a pattern that it can see, it begins to show it to more people that match that pattern, right? And so then it says, okay, these people within this pattern watch it, and it begins to move the algorithm to find the people who are most likely to watch your video. Now, look, I'm not going to tell you that I think AI is bad. I think it's fantastic. I have written a number of work orders with ChatGPT. Right? Like, I'm gonna be real with you. But one of the things that this AI does is that it creates echo chambers, right? Because what is it doing? It's finding people who believe like you believe, who consume the same content you consume, and it is literally forcing you in a direction that matches your confirmation biases. It's going the direction that you were going anyway.
Yeah.
And so, whereas 40 years ago, if you walked out on the street and you said, I believe that the sky is purple, half the people on the street would look at you like you're crazy and say, dude, have you lost your mind? Right? But now there are people in social media that if you say the sky is purple, there's 150 people out of the billions of people on social media who will agree with you. Yep. Doesn't make you right because they agreed with you, right? But it doesn't mean you can't find someone who won't agree with you, you know?
Yeah,
it can't be judged. It can't be the ruler of reality that we use to judge ourselves with.
Yeah. And so then in terms of like, we've talked a lot about communication now. And so I think owners get to the point of maybe listening to this, they're like, well, how often do I need to communicate with my team? So what is your take and your opinion in terms of how often you should be checking in with different team members.
Okay, so y'all ain't gonna like this. I'm sorry. Look, the reality is every single day you need to have a meeting in the morning. You've got to have a huddle at lunchtime. At the end of the day, you have to have a closing of the day meeting. And I know how tough that is. And I don't always do it. I'm not, listen, you calling the kettle black here. Man, I'm telling you, it is tough. It is hard. And you get busy and things happen and you got a podcast to do or you got a client on the front counter. You have to do it. And so that's your base communication. And then every single month, you need to be having some one-on-ones with staff. You need to be talking to them, even if it's just you two going to lunch. David that I do the podcast with, he records these meetings and he has very specific questions he asks them. Hey, what has your experience been like? Do you have concerns? How's family life? Are you doing okay financially? Right. And it's digging in and asking questions so you can tailor the fit of the business to your technician, to your service advisor to make sure they feel okay where they're at. It should never be a surprise that someone's leaving. And I've said that to shop owners, and I've had some offended people over that. If you've got a technician and he up and leaves, and you didn't have any clue that he was getting ready to leave, you need to do some serious self-reflection about how much communication you're doing, right? Because you should be picking up on that. You should be feeling it. You should be seeing what's happening. And I tell friends that have multi-shops all the time, man, it terrifies me, the concept of going multi-shop for that reason. And the only way you do that is you hire somebody in to replace you in that subset. It still has to be done. If you're going to run a business, someone has to be communicating with your staff. So 3 times a day, every single day that you're open, and then once a month with each staff member, a deep dive into what their experience has been, where they're at, do they need anything? Do we need to work on certain training areas, reviewing the numbers? That has to happen every month.
Man, I need to improve on meeting somehow with my team.
Wait a minute, you're just meeting with yourself, man. Come on now.
I'm like sweating over here. My team's gonna watch this. Like, oh my goodness, I gotta improve how much I'm communicating. But in terms of 3 times a day, obviously, I mean, a daunting task for those maybe that are not even doing any a day. Maybe they do it once a month, and so they're like, well, how in the world will I take the steps to do this? But more so, I think people want to understand the rubric of these meetings. Like, how long are they typically, and
5 minutes.
What are you saying in that meeting?
Yeah. So your 3 meetings a day, right, are pretty simple. It's here's everything that's in the shop. Okay. Tell me what's going on with this. Tell me what's going on with that. Hey, we're going to put this up first. This is going to go next. It's really your dispatch meeting. And it's designed to make sure everybody has a chance to say, hey, there's this problem. It's designed to make sure that everybody in the shop knows where every single project is at. So if somebody has to jump in and take care of it, the client walks in the door, the technician's the only one standing at the front counter. Now they know, here's where we're at in this project right now. The service advisor isn't here right now, but they'll be back soon and we can get you some more information. But I just want to keep you updated on where we're at. Right. And so those are fairly short meetings. Every morning, I print out a list of every car that's in the shop, and we're paperless. We use Shopware, and we dispatch on Shopware, but I have that paper list, and we go down that list one by one by one. What technician is on it? What service advisor is on it? And where are we in the process? And that makes me, that's a personal thing, but it makes me feel like I'm in control. It makes me feel like I know where everything's at. And so we review that list together. And so everybody knowing where everything is at. Now, lunchtime is simply saying, okay, we've got 4 hours in today, and I need to know where you're at on this project, and this project. And so it's our way of holding them accountable and knowing what to tell the client. Well, this job's got 8 hours on it, and I have about 2 hours left. Okay, you're ahead of schedule. This job's got an hour on it, and it's the only job I've done today. Okay, what's wrong? Why are we not moving forward? And those are the instances where you're going to find out I've got problems at home. We didn't get the parts we needed. About 90% of production problems in a shop are front counter. When we moved to the new facility, we went from 3 bays to 10 bays. When we moved to the new facility, we dealt with a lot of, and still dealing with a lot of production problems in the new shop because it completely changed our process. And so that allows us to find each one of the holes in the Swiss cheese to say, okay, parts are a problem. Everybody's saying they can't get the parts. They don't know the new part is here. The service advisor is too busy, right? That's where we're finding that information. Now, at the end of the day, we're bookending. Okay. And so we're having a meeting that says, here's where we're at. Here's what we finished. Hey, we're a little disappointed this didn't work out like we expected it to, but we've got the parts ordered. Hey, by the way, here's everything that's coming in tomorrow. Did we get the parts ordered? Is that estimate built? Has anybody called that client to follow up on whatever it may be? And so it's allowing us to catch those mistakes before they happen at the end of the day. One of the big things I keep getting onto my service advisor about right now is I'm like, hey, listen, the problem is we make little mistakes. We've built a process in this business, and the process is designed to prevent mistakes and to make it flow and make it easy for you. The problem is if you miss one step of the process somewhere, it causes the process to break. And so now we've got a little mistake over here and a little mistake over there. And because we didn't do those things when we're supposed to, they pile up. And now I'm having to knock them out and finish them all at once. Whereas if we're having these 3 meetings a day, we know that we've followed the process. We know that every step of the process is taken care of. And if it's not, we know what we expect. Okay. We know what has to be fixed. We know what in the morning is going to be a problem, so we can start dealing with it and moving things as we need to. The monthly meeting is really a situation where we're talking to them and trying to understand what are they going through in their personal life. I'm not trying to bridge over into being a marriage counselor or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really just trying to understand, hey, man, you doing good? Like, how's the wife? How's the kids? Is there anything that you guys need? Or are you doing okay? Is everything what you would expect it to be? And then we're talking about work. We're saying, hey, I've noticed here's where your production's at. For the month, we're a little up, we're a little bit down. I'm looking for patterns. I'm looking for changes. I'm looking for something that's different in that technician's behavior. And it's helping me catch these things before they become a problem, right? And so I'm talking to them about production. I'm talking to them about training. What are you passionate about? What do you want to do? I'm talking to them about the future. Where are we saving money? Are you still putting money back? Right? Especially young technicians. I'm going to tell you, it can be controversial, but one of the things that keeps coming up is that we're not paying technicians enough.
Mm-hmm.
And we have dealt with an experience here in the shop where we gave somebody substantial raises because they felt like they weren't being compensated fairly. And as we increased those wages, they continued to come back and say, I'm not being compensated fairly. And before I recognized it, I'm not doing a good job with my meetings. I didn't recognize, like, hey, dude says he can't pay his rent again. Like, what's up with that? Should have been having meetings, and I would have found that he had fallen into Parkinson's law, which is he's spending more than he makes. And every time he gets more money, he gets right back into that same cycle of spending all of his cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we can help them, because Kelsey, at the end of the day, they're human beings.
Mm-hmm.
And if we as an employer can have some outside perspective and provide that perspective and guide them and coach them and help them get through whatever it is they're going through, not only does it help the business, but it helps us gain better perspective, right? And so that meeting every month is really about gaining perspective, understanding them, understanding their challenges, and making sure we're not blind to something, right?
Absolutely. And I think with training also, and you mentioned how important training is, but I think also training in facets outside of just like being a technician, like facets of financial and independence and understanding how to budget and do that. I think those are huge things that, hey, I guarantee there's a financial advisor in your town that has more than enough time to come host a 30-minute, 1-hour lunch.
Absolutely.
Like, hey, this is how you guys should be doing it. And then sure, like that helps them, that helps you, it helps the team, like everyone around. So finding other ways to train, not just I need you to be better at fixing this car and this type of car so that we
absolutely
can do better. So
expanding horizons, right? And you know, we sometimes get locked into the mindset that it's all about fixing the cars. You know, things like typing and comprehension, right? The training doesn't have to be locked into automotive training. And let's think about this. One of the big challenges with the auto repair industry is a lot of the folks who are aging out, right? We recognize that I want to say it was 35% are over the age of 50 right now in the automotive trade. Um, we don't have anywhere for them to go. And I say that to folks, and they're surprised to, well, couldn't they be service advisors? Couldn't they be managers? Couldn't they be right? But we've not trained them for that. And so if we can begin to train these folks up from the very ground levels on what the business does, well, Lucas, what if they go start their own shop? Great. Right? You want to talk about improving the industry? You want to talk about changing the industry? Teach the next generation of technicians the right way to do it. Right? Teach them before they go start their own shop how the business is supposed to run. We've talked about that in the group before, is that a lot of technicians, they're like, I'm going to go out, I'm going to start my own shop. I'm going to show him the boss is sticking it to me. He's getting all this money out of me and I'm not making anything. Oh, boys, you go start a business, you figure out real quick that ain't the case. Right? Yeah. Like, you're lucky if you get that 10% at the end of the year. And most of it goes back into the business. Well, if we can prevent some of that and do it through education, like I said, financial education, make sure that they don't feel the need to go somewhere else because they're taken care of financially and they're making smart financial decisions. If someone had taught me about compounding interest when I was 16 and I would have listened, I'd have a lot more money than I have right now, and I'd be a lot happier, I'm sure. Maybe a lot fatter too, but like I think the thing is that if we could get into that and teach our people as a whole and raise them up as the next generation of shop owners, we would have done a service to our industry, to our profession in a big way.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned like that entrepreneurship, like that. I think maybe some of the older generation is a little bit fearful of this entrepreneurial mindset of the younger generation, because I mean, there's different levels of entrepreneurial mindset. I mean,
right?
Like a lot of younger generation feels more like, oh, that just gives them the flexibility. They just feel like, oh, it gives them that time flexibility because now they're the boss. They don't have to ask for time off. They don't have to do certain things. But obviously, there's so much more that goes into entrepreneurship if they find out on their own. But fostering that talent for them, like again, that will breed loyalty, regardless of if they end up starting their own thing or not. That person now at your shop will be guarantee a better performer than if you didn't. You just said, oh, like, they might want to start their own thing. So I'm not going to give them these right opportunities that allows them to grow in a way that will allow them to start their own thing to compete with me. It's like, no, that's not what it's about. Because again, the industry won't improve at the end of the day if we keep handcuffing people.
Let me ask you, how many shop owners do you talk to that are in their 50s, that are in their 60s, that are in their 70s, and they're saying, well, I'd like to retire. Okay. Well, who's going to take the business? Well, I guess it's just going to close down. Okay, why? Well, because you didn't train your replacement, right? And I don't mean to get back on the financial thing. I've dealt with so many of these shop owners over the years that we come back to and we're talking to them and, okay, well, how much did you pay yourself? I didn't pay myself. I took a little bit of cash over here. Okay, did you pay rent? Well, no, I own the place. Why would I pay rent on the property? I own it. Well, because that's how you show the value of the business, right? And they never understood that. And so if we train them to at least make better decisions in that aspect, that when they own a shop, they could potentially get out in such a way that they built wealth. I think that would be huge. And you know, we need to be training our shops now how to build wealth. The automotive industry, as far as the people in it, are the kindest, most giving human beings I've ever met anywhere. I've never been taken into a crowd in such a way that people genuinely showed that they cared and reached out to try and help and to teach me and to make my business better. And in such, we see a lot of shop owners who make decisions that will punish them personally to help someone else. And so whether it's not charging what you should charge, whether it's fixing things that aren't really your responsibility to fix, paying more than you should pay to employees or not paying enough to other employees. If we had a better understanding of the business financials, I think that we would see more wealth being generated and we would see people being able to properly care for their families and properly care for their staff the way that they should be cared for, right? And I think that that would be a huge step in the right direction for the automotive industry.
Absolutely. And so I know you dabbled on it a little bit, but in terms of like wage, and so really that
Mm-hmm.
labor rate, like
Yeah.
what do you believe
Mm-hmm.
it should truly be? I personally
Oh,
have my own opinion in terms of I think it's much too low comparative
it
to
is.
some of the
It
other
is.
industries. What is your take on what?
Um, so a couple different things. I believe that it should be set on the cost of doing business. It should not be set off of a whim. It should not be set off what somebody down the street's charging because you don't understand what their expenses are. And there is a set, absolute 100% formula that you can use to set your labor rate in your business. So we know that we would have to set it to that. I think that the current labor rates are a byproduct of what everybody else is charging. And one of the common themes that we hear is I just want to make sure I'm less than the dealer. Well, I hate to tell you, but the dealer's got a car lot to subsidize that. They've got a manufacturer that helps them with tools. They've got a manufacturer that helps them with training. And they don't work on the things that we work on. They work on almost new vehicles. They work on vehicles that aren't rusty. They work on vehicles that don't have problems like this. They turn away the older vehicles. They turn away some of this more complex work. And it's getting worse, right? I'm not saying dealer guys aren't smart. I'm just saying they have more flexibility and the opportunity to turn some of this away. But we've always said we're going to charge less than they do. I think as a whole, we got to realize that the skilled trades are severely undercharging compared to the value they provide.
Mm-hmm.
This country stops without the skilled trades, whether it's a block mason, a plumber, an auto mechanic, a appliance repairman, right? Like an electrician. This country doesn't do what it does without them. And for so long, we have put our priorities in other places, right? And we love to travel and we love seeing these celebrities and going out and buying this $500 pair of shoes. And I think that's fabulous, right? Don't get me wrong. I think it's awesome if you can afford to do that. Don't show up at my shop expecting me to fix your car for free because you wasted your money on something else. That's not what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
To your question though, what should labor rates be? I think they should probably easily be in the $300 range right now. I think if we'd followed inflation from the 70s and matched what others are doing, I think that that's probably where we would be. Even if we didn't set our labor rates based on a specific number, trying to get it up that high, right? Mm-hmm. If we just charged for the hours that we actually worked on something like every other profession in the world, we'd be in a lot better shape as well, right? So, we're working on extremely complex automobiles. We're using extremely expensive pieces of equipment to do that. And we're using very, very skilled human beings that I would say less than 10% of the population has the capability of doing what our most skilled automotive technicians can do. And we're telling them that they have to do it in an hour and they're only going to get paid an hour for it in some cases, no matter what. Mm-hmm. What if we change the concept to say, we're going to charge for how much time we have in something? And if my guy's not smart enough to do that faster, maybe I need to either A, find a new guy or train this guy to where he's faster. Mm-hmm. But we start charging by the hour for what it takes to do the job. I did not build it. I did not buy it. And I did not break it. It's your responsibility to fix your car. It's not mine. Mm-hmm. And again, if you want that super duper nice pair of shoes or that nice purse or whatever it is, be my guest. But don't expect me to subsidize auto repair for you with the money that was supposed to feed my family, feed my team, or pay for my kids to go to college. I'm not going to do it anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of, because of that generosity, it's just like, oh, I know that person. That's, I feel bad. Yeah. I need to be able to take care of that for them. And then that just compounds. And so I think my next question is more on training the muscle of saying no. Like how, there's so many people that struggle with that. I know for me in lots of different situations where I'm just like, I just want to help them though. And so like, even if this, I know profit margin wise, it makes no sense for me to say yes. I do it anyways. And so that's where for you, how do you go through this practice of just like saying no and kind of getting a better process?
Man, you want to talk about a liberating experience is when you can get to saying no. right? And you can do what's right for you and your family. And you realize, there's a coach years ago, I was listening to him speak, and somebody stood up and said, well, you lost the championship. And he said, we did. And they said, but what are you going to do? Aren't you afraid you're going to be fired? And he said, what are they going to do? They can't eat me. I'll go get another job. Like, right. I'm going to still be alive. I don't think you understand. This is not the gravity of life.
Mm.
And so that was eye-opening for me, because we put such significance on every job that comes through the door. And we look at it in such an aggressive way that we're terrified of A, upsetting someone, of B, charging them more than they think is right. We have to remember this is an agreement, right? This is an agreement with the client. And we tell them how much we're going to charge, and they say yes or no. And if they say no, that's okay. If I'm going to do a job, I'm going to make enough in it that I can be made whole. And so if my price says no for you, then my price says no for you. So I think starting out by saying, here is what the profit model for the business needs to be, and sticking to your guns, not letting fear get in the way. And let me tell you something, fear is the number one problem in this area. They are afraid. They're afraid that if I charge this, oh my goodness, my clients, they'll never come back. Listen, your clients don't go to a coffee shop on a Saturday morning and say, hey, let's go pick on Bob. Okay. They're not all congregating and talking about what you're charging. And absolutely true. At some point, you're going to reach a glass ceiling. I would say it's north of $500 an hour and some significant parts markup. But at some point, you will reach a glass ceiling and you'll knock yourself out of the market. But I doubt any shop in the nation is right there at that threshold right now. And so I think drop the fear at the door, make a decision that I'm going to do what's right for my family. I'm going to do what's right for my people, and set some strict policies, right? And the reason that we say yes when we should be saying no a lot of the time, Kelsey, is because, gosh, well, I did that for Bob over here. Maybe I should do that for him over here. And not if you don't have documentation. If you have documentation that says we do this, I don't take client supplied parts. And everybody in the shop will tell you, sorry, I can't do it. Hate it for you, right? Like, that's just what we do. You don't get a loaner car unless you have an insurance agreement that says it covers loaner or rental cars. It's just a rule, right? And every other corporation, every other business has rules that you're supposed to follow. I use the example sometimes. If you walk into Walmart and you walk out the front door with a pack of gum, it doesn't matter if it's 50 cents or not, they're coming for you, right? They will absolutely have you charged over that 50-cent pack of gum. And a lot of times it could be a mistake, right? But they take that so seriously, that little bit of inventory. Yet we see shop owners giving that inventory, their labor inventory, away day after day after day after day, trying to help somebody. When you learn what the profitability standards of the business are, and you have a set rule of policies and procedures for your business, this is what we'll do and this is what we won't do. No is not a problem anymore. It's just part of the process.
Absolutely. Well, Lucas, thank you so much.
My pleasure, buddy. My pleasure.
We dug into quite a few array of different topics, but I think at the end of the day, what we come down to is let's change the industry by changing the perspective. Have that communication, buddy. And I think the rest will take care of it. So Lucas, for those that, again, hopefully they are still listening, as a last word and last piece of advice for them, what would you like to leave them with?
Gosh, there's a lot of things, but you know what? You're not alone. There are people all in this industry going through what you're going through right now. And so don't ever think that you're alone. Reach out, get some help, understand you're not on an island, and be part of what's changing our industry. Learn, grow. It's time for a new perspective.
Well, Lucas, thank you so much. For those that want to possibly reach out to you personally, if they have a question or just want to hear more of your stories, what is the best way to reach out to you?
You can find our podcast on changingtheindustrypodcast.com. You can find me on Facebook, Lucas Underwood. You can email me, lucas@asog, ASOG.site, SITE. Reach out to me anytime. I'm glad to help any way I can.
Perfect. All right, Lucas. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe below. I'm Kelsey with Lift Auto Repair Marketing. Talk to you guys again soon.